Do you think journalism has suffered massively in recent years? Funding obviously has been an issue, but do you think the trust that we talked about at the beginning has put people off?
I don't think the trust issue has at all. I mean, the biggest problem for our industry is the future, of the funding of the business model, because the government ad spend, for example, with the big tech platforms, just completely dwarfs the spend in local news media, and that's despite our huge reach and our high levels of public trust. Something like 3% of its advertising budget was spent in local news media last year, compared to 17%, which was spent with Google and Facebook. And that's crazy when you consider that we reach more people in our local news areas than Facebook does, which is now actually declining, in audience, as more of their readers are turning to sort of TikTok and Snapchat for news.
And how important do you think social media is? I mean, have you had to change a business model to incorporate social media, the likes of Twitter and TikTok, for example, in the way that you put news out? And I know we're obviously using it very much for the crime network, but local reporters?
I think we have to go just where the audience is. And, if the audience, when the audience was on Facebook, that's where we had to start sending our readers and our news to make sure that we got those readers to our website back. I think with Twitter, it's quite different in it's much more of a kind of source of news or a way to, debate news issues. It's not really where we would get,
It's kind of platform for breaking news is Twitter. It's become that kind of platform where a lot of stories break on Twitter.
It has, yeah, it has, absolutely. And the government, local and national, will use it. Police will use it, but nevertheless, nevertheless, we still have to go back and check what they're doing, because the police, for example, will use Twitter for breaking news, and they will dictate what we know, and only a very small percentage of crimes that are happening in the UK will actually be publicised by the police. It's not a case now of where we used to have local reporters, for example, going in to visit the police station, sitting down there, going through the book with the cops and looking at every single spit and cough that happened on their beat that week. Those books are closed now. That access has been shut down. There's now just press officers that are the gatekeepers to what the public knows. We've done FOIs on this sort of thing before, and it's incredible the amount of crimes that go unreported because the police do not want to tell people what's going on. And that's why, we need to have this investigation unit at Newsquest, because we can actually uncover that sort of, material and make sure the public know.
Yeah, and I think one of the massive things is that it's quite interesting how, certainly when I was in the police, we'd have court reporters there all the time. They'd come to the trials. Of course, a lot of that has died, albeit Newsquest, thankfully, still has a court reporter system. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places. And that information obviously is then fed into the nationals. And it's quite interesting the amount of murder investigations, murder trials that happen at court that never see the light of day.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we have got court reporters across the country. We make sure that all of our big dailies are represented in court with journalists. And, and it's a great way as well to get the human side from the family, because quite often the police will say, oh, the family don't want to talk to you. But we'll actually find that we go there, we build that relationship, and we actually then get the human side of the story, which is really important. But there are, lots of, crimes that do go unreported in the courts. We make sure that we publicise those so people, can see that open justice. I mean, I'm a massive advocate of open justice. And it's almost like there isn't a day go by that some criminal in court is trying to plead an anonymity, which we then get our legal representatives to go in and challenge, because the fact and our reporters will stand up in court.
And you've had some great results, haven't you? You've challenged cases. There was a recent case that was challenged by one of the Newsquest reporters, and actually got the sanctions lifted, so the name could be reported.
Yeah, and I took a call last night about something similar, where criminals will say, you know, on my mental health, or they'll say that their mental health will be affected, or they'll be suicidal, you know, and these are real serious criminals, like paedophiles, who are trying to get anonymity based on their mental health, which is absolutely appalling. The public have a right to know who these people are, and it's, you know, and that's why we insist on having a court reporter at every one of our daily newspapers that's in court and reporting on these people, to make sure that they're publicised and named and shamed for what they've done.